Hey mamas, this is for you if you have girls around the ages of 8-ish till about 12-ish or still waiting for that first cycle, particularly if this is brand new to you. So maybe this is your oldest girl or just not a season you've traversed through before. These are things that I wish I had known before my daughter was in this season. If you're new here, I'm Rita Johnson. I'm the owner of Health and Hormones, and here you'll find everything from fatigue solutions to period help and true gut healing. Let's dive in. So I have four daughters, and my oldest two are firmly into their cycles now. And one of the very first things I wish that I would have known prior to cycles is that emotionally, they're going to have a harder time regulating their emotions prior to cycles starting. And I think this is really helpful for us because as we live in the home with a girl who's really struggling with dysregulated emotions and she doesn't know why, and it's as if she's living PMS for weeks or months at a time. And she doesn't have any context for this, and we don't either. We have a hunch that this is on the horizon. Oftentimes, puberty will be preempted by a stretching out, so a big growth spurt, or they'll shoot up. Obviously, adding some curvature to their bodies will also start to happen as those estrogen levels start to rise. We see a separating of waist and hips instead of just that little girl body, which was much more not that way. And then obviously some breasts develop. But really, this emotional piece, I think, is something that's not talked about enough. And I have found with my own girls, sitting them down during this time and just helping them to understand this is what you're embarking upon. If you haven't had that conversation yet of these are the changes you're going to experience, and it's by God's design and it's beautiful. And at the end of this, you're going to turn more and more into the woman God is creating you to be. And that is a mother, that is a nurturer, even if they never physically carry a baby in their womb. And so just empowering them with that information is the very first step. And then helping them to understand that as their cycles begin, they'll have hormonal shifts throughout the month. And with those hormonal shifts, sometimes it happens that we feel really grouchy or really irritable or we cry really easily. But when we know where we're at in a cycle, it's just easier to deal with that. There's more peace in our own bodies with how we're responding to that. And so that's something I think it's really important to allow to give our daughters that language around what's happening, where we're going, and how this is going to get better. And particularly in my second oldest daughter, I found that that was really helpful for her. She had a much more difficult time with the emotional regulation piece prior to cycles. And now she really is able to lean into oh, where am I at in my cycle? And have that greater grace for her body and what she's expecting out of it at that time. Okay, another thing that I wish somebody would have told me before cycling, it was really to prime my daughters for the breadth of the different types of options of period products. I know this sounds silly, but it's changed so much since I had my first cycle in the mid-90s. And so it's really neat to see the different things from the period underwear to, gosh, I don't even know, the cups to, obviously the pads and the tampons and all of that too. But it's just really helpful for them to feel like they have some ownership in that or some of that decision-making ability as well. We've bought a few different things for them to kind of experiment with and try out. And we found that that's been really helpful as well. So just, really kind of ask your girlfriends what has helped them for their girls, what products are they using? Obviously, just starting with some pads is always a great first line, but exploring that from there. Quick side note here. If your daughter is cycling and she has painful cramps, if she's using tampons, be sure that she's only using organic tampons. Just that switch alone can sometimes be enough to help prevent those painful cramps because of the toxic chemicals they put in tampons. Obviously, there could be other issues going on, things like endometriosis, but if we can start with something subtle and small and that makes an improvement, then we definitely want to start there. Okay, so lastly, I wish someone would have told me that there's so much to spreading out the conversation on things like the birds and the bees. I think a lot of times when we think about pulling our daughters aside and explaining to them the way that their body is designed, we also then start to think, should I tell you how that baby gets there? And what I have found in my own family is that the time that they're ready for the physical changes to be talked about through this beautiful lens of, a firm foundation in your body is good. It was designed beautifully. There's a lot you can do to support it, to the way a baby is made. It was a totally different developmentally conversation. I found that most of my kids, we could have the first conversation somewhere around 8, 9, 10, depending on what was going on with them, what was going on with their friends and their community. But the second conversation, we really have delayed until a little bit closer to 13 or 14. Now, my children are homeschooled. They're not in a room with children that are talking about this openly. And I would definitely say, I just wanted to be the person that had that conversation with my kiddos. So I definitely would have moved it up had I been concerned about that. But it was just a really beautiful time and place to be able to experience all of that put together when we had that final conversation. And obviously, it's not exactly a one and done. It's an ongoing conversation, particularly in this world when there's so much else going on and so much for them to navigate. But that's what we found has worked really well for us and for our family. So I hope this is helpful for you. If not, or if you have other questions that you're like, gosh, what am I going to do about this? Please reach out or put a comment below. I'd love to hear more what you're struggling with and how we can help you through it.